Greetings, everyone. Welcome to Catalyst Energies. My name is Dee. Thank you for joining me. I am so grateful that you are here. Aquarius, welcome to your new moon forecast. This video, this report is focused on the main astrological themes for the Aquarius new moon, which is today, February 9th, 2024. And the main astrological themes for the next 2 weeks leading up to our full moon, which will be in the sign of Virgo. It will be on the 24th of February. So this is directed to Aquarius rising, Aquarius sun, Aquarius moon, first and foremost. But anybody with strong Aquarius in any of the charts that they look at, or if you know Aquarius people in your life, or if you're even here just to learn more about astrology, so you listen to all of these forecasts, even if you're not an Aquarius. This Aquarius, first and foremost, welcome back, everyone. Let me not get off track here from my opening intro. Thank you for being here. I really appreciate all of you who are subscribed, who are commenting, who are sharing this content. Even just hitting the like button really makes a difference in terms of the growth of this channel, which is organic, and I'm only 2 subscribers away from getting to 500. And I know that seems like nothing, but when you start from none and it grows without sponsorship or without any other artificial boosting of all of these stats, it does actually mean a lot. So if you are here and you're new and you find some value in this, you may want to consider subscribing. Man, that would be a small consolation to the week that has been probably the worst week of my life. So, and that segue into, first and foremost, thank you to those who are supporting Catalyst Energies on Subscribestar. You guys have been so amazing this week with everything that's been going on in terms of reaching out and in terms of being willing to listen and being patient as I've gone on bereavement leave for the time being with the content that I put out. So I just appreciate you all so much. And Aquarius folks, if you're not involved in that fellowship, but you are here and you're a subscriber, or if you're new here, this is probably the most somber and most difficult report or video I think I've ever done. So, and if not for the fact that I myself am an Aquarius rising person, and there are people in my immediate life who are also just as affected by the circumstances of the last 5 days, the fact that they're Aquarius as well. If not for that fact, I probably wouldn't even be doing this. So I really need the time and space for grief in terms of what's been going on in my personal life since Monday. But the fact that the Aquarian aspect is so deeply and directly connected to what's been happening, that I know that other Aquarius people are going to get something of empathy, a sense of hope from this video, possibly, even if it's just one other person, because if I am struggling and the other people in my life are struggling, the Aquarius people like we are right now, there are other people I know who really could use some connection around maybe what they're what kind of adversity, what type of crisis is happening in the life of the Aquarius person. Because to be truly honest here, the symbolism surrounding the new moon is really not easy. It's not easy to face up to disappointing and disillusioning circumstances and emotional crises, but that's exactly what this new moon is about. So Aquarius, I know that I'm not going to be my normal self in terms of this report, and anybody that knows anything about grief, in bereavement, my memory is completely shot, and so and mental faculties are suffering right now, and so it may not be what a normal, especially as an Aquarius person, it may not be as full and as detailed and on point as usually things are, but I also feel like that I can just let my intuition take over in this particular report, and whatever needs to be said is going to be said in terms of what to expect with the astrology. So if you're more interested in a more technical read right now, you're probably not going to get that from this report. So just giving fair warning if that's what you're here, especially if you're new here and that's what you're here for. But without further ado, Aquarius, let's get into this particular new moon forecast. And so what I'd like to share with you first and foremost is, if you are looking at the screen, and you may just be listening, and that's fine too, um, the majority of the action in the cosmos, and when I say cosmos, I really mean our solar system. When you look at the natal chart, especially what I have cast here, it's the planets and the bodies and everything within our solar system. Now, when you do starseed astrology, what you're basically doing is expanding the lens of your chart to include the fixed stars that are within the galaxy, right? But just as the natal chart, we're just looking at the planets, the asteroids, other positions that are within the solar system. And what we're looking at here, for especially the Aquarius rising chart, which is how horoscopes are read, is whatever your rising sign is. All the action, with the exception of what's finishing up in the 12th house, which is Mars and Venus as of today, and things like the south node of the moon, which is our unconscious history, where we're coming out of it as a soul, and Black Moon Lilith was the lunar apogee. So these aren't even bodies, they're just positions and relative to other positions and bodies. These are things at the top of the chart, but all of the action for the Aquarius person is in the first through fourth houses, right? It's all about individual identity and expression. Let me tell you something, Aquarius. I did a lot of emoting already this morning so that I could do this video and hold it together. And as an Aquarius person, I'm going to really stress this point because it's essential. An Aquarius person, without that balance with Leo, right, which is the polarity of Aquarius, which is the individual resonance of, or the individual heart's resonance, speaking your truth, speaking your own, being authentic, your voice, your heart's passion coming through in some sort of expression or creativity. Leo is the lion, right? And the heart of the lion is where that passion and that intensity comes from. And it's very individualistic. That's why it's represented by our sun, because there is no other sun, at least as far as we know, in our solar system. It's the center of all of it, which is the heart. And it comes through some sort of creative expression, something authentic, something that brings you joy or grief, right? It doesn't have to just be positive. It has to be real. Aquarius, without that healthy balance in your life and in your chart, you just become another cog in the wheel. You become so easily just the hive mind when you lose the ability to access and express who you are. It's essential, Aquarius, that you go back to the full moon and realize that that was an illumination or a revelation, at least in terms of how we experience our emotions, our feelings, right? The full moon, our subconscious being revealed to us. Go back and review that, because that showed a lot about how to then be able to weather the emotional storms that are already here. And this next lunar cycle is asking the Aquarius person, and all of us, truly, it's not just Aquarius people, it's just that we're going to be the personalities that are experienced in this very subjectively, or certainly very emotionally. If you're an Aquarius moon, Aquarius, you just become hive mind, and it's very easy to be to lose yourself. And I really encourage anyone listening to this that find that Leo in your chart. And if you have strong Leo, or if you have something in particular that's in Leo, maybe take some time to explore that, to familiarize yourself with what that means symbolically, if it's a certain planet or a certain body. If you're an Aquarius rising, knowing that your one-on-one relationships are where the truth of who you are is able to be expressed, and to not shy away from that or to push that away, right? It'll be a little bit harder, I think, for the Sun and Moon Aquarius people, unless you know that there's strong Leo in your chart to balance it out. Know what house that Leo is in if Aquarius is not your rising sign. Look to the areas in your chart that are going to give you an idea of where you need to work in order to balance out. Again, go back and review the Leo full moon. There's a lot there that could lend itself to this practice and this process, because it's with Pluto here in Aquarius, with the Mercury here in Aquarius, the fact that the new moon is in Aquarius, Mars and Venus are both going to come into Aquarius, right? There is so much energy in the sign of Aquarius, which is the collective consciousness. It is the resonance of humanity as a whole. And Aquarius people, it's really easy for us, as I'm sure any Aquarius can attest to, it's very easy to get identified with humanity or with the whole and lose yourself. And yes, right now I've managed to do like the standard Aquarian thing where you can kind of just like turn it off, right? You can turn off the individual emoting or expression and be identified with the whole. And it does allow, especially a moon in Aquarius, right? It does allow for a little bit of aloofness in order to have a break from those feelings. But at the same time, I didn't deny myself. I haven't been denying myself. When the waves of grief come out, or come through, I let them out. And so I did a lot of that already. And so Aquarius, if you're finding yourself in a difficult position right now and you are realizing, how am I going to actually face up to this crisis or this adversity or this, disillusionment of losing something, or even just losing your cherished illusions, right? It comes in the form of the balance with the Leo energy, okay? I just really encourage the Aquarian people to not lose themselves, to keep the fire in their heart ignited. And that's actually a wonderful segue into some of the other things that are happening now. So I don't have it up on the chart, but for those of you who like to follow the asteroids as well within the solar system, asteroid Vesta just stationed direct, I believe either as of yesterday, or I think as of yesterday, the 8th. And Vesta, or Hestia, was a goddess in the Greek and Roman pantheon, and she was the goddess of the hearth flame, right? The hearth flame, the flame of the hearth in the home. And it cooks your food, it keeps you warm. It is something that the Vestal virgins, the priestesses in these cultures, they were responsible solely for keeping this flame alive, because it represented the eternal flame, a spiritual flame, a divine flame. And Vesta, the asteroid, she's currently in Gemini right now. And so for the Aquarius person, wow, that is your heart, right? The 5th house. And so having Vesta stationed direct as of yesterday, right? Bringing your attention back to what is that fire for you? What is that hearth flame that stays alive and can at any time be lit and ignited, or light something else, right? It's like a pilot light that you then are able to ignite the fuel and then have heat in your house or whatever. So that's just one way to think about this. But Vesta as the divine flame, the holy fire, right? The hearth flame that is the center of it all, the community, the family, and it does all the things we needed to do. This going direct in the 5th house for the Aquarius rising, I think, is an indication. And what degree? 22 degrees Gemini, right? These are two people dancing together at a harvest festival. There's something very important about not losing access to or letting the flame of just the dance, right? The dance with life, the dance with those you care about. It's and how that process really does actually rebuild some things energetically, reinvigorates us. So the dancing couples at a harvest festival, right? There's something very visceral and enjoyable about that. And I think is important for Aquarius people to pay attention to. So I wanted to find one more set of notes about that particular degree. It's like, just to not forget to plunge into rewarding experiences, not to hold yourself back, and it's okay. Sometimes when people are grieving and they have a really hard time like enjoying themselves or feeling not guilty about enjoying themselves, or to throw themselves into situations and to be excited about things. And right now, may not be the time. I know I can speak for myself. Right now is not the time, but this also suggests, like, oh, don't forget about that flame that's there. Like, that's how we are able to move forward. Now, I'm going to go into a little bit of a promotional, a segue into some promotional things, but it actually fits really well into what I'm talking about. So I did do a recent presentation, and you may have seen this flyer floating around if you're on the channel or if you're on Telegram or on the email list, and there'll be another one coming out on the email list soon, that I actually did a special presentation about the year of the wood dragon that begins today with the second new moon after the solstice, the Chinese New Year, the Lunar New Year. So the Year of the Wood Dragon is what's starting today, and I did a presentation about general trends, explaining 5-element theory, the fact that our full moon, which is, it's the time period between this new moon and the full moon that the Chinese New Year is celebrated. The next full moon will be conjunct Alpha Draconis, and so there was, of course, considering we're talking about the dragon and that connection to Alpha Draconis in the sky, we had a nice discussion about Draco mythology and Draco Starseed. So this presentation is only available to those who are subscribed on Subscribestar. There are 3 tiers, and the $5 and $9 tier have access to this. So if you want more information, it's in the description box about how to go to Subscribestar and see what all the benefits are of supporting Catalyst Energies on a monthly basis. But and I know, see, this is the moment, right, where your brain, you got grief brain, and you're like, I don't even remember what I just said, because I know I brought up the wood dragon for a reason, in terms of looking at all this information. Oh, it was mostly just that there's so much, the wood aspect in Chinese 5-element theory is about spring and fresh and new and the beginnings, right, and the seeds. And yes, the connection in terms of traditional Chinese medicine, it's related to anger, for instance. And the dragon in and of itself, not just the wood dragon, but the dragon is represented by the earth element, actually, in Chinese 5-element theory. And so the generating force in between those two of the wood and the earth, which represents peace as kind of a state of being as opposed to anger, well, the generating force between them is joy. It's the heart. It's fire, right? And so Aquarius, again, it's if you go into your head, or you lose sight of your own passions and the thing that ignites you, and that may mean letting authentic grief come through. If you lose sight of that, then you're losing the opportunity for this. There's so much opportunity for growth, but something new, right? Something brand new to come forward, innovation, problem solving, just newness that's coming forward. And I will say that just based on this report and then some of the things I'm going to share with you are really leading me to believe, and I already said this in that presentation, that I get a strong vibe that there's going to be a lot of babies conceived, which means that they're going, especially around this month, right? There's going to be too many conjunctions with Pluto. Of Venus and Mars are going to be conjunct Pluto. The fact that Venus and Mars themselves are going to be conjunct with each other in Aquarius as well. So there's just a lot of that raw primal energy going on in terms of, the Aquarius person really projecting themselves out there. But I just keep getting the sense a lot of life is going to be conceived of, and creativity. And that I feel like a lot of babies are going to be conceived this month, as they are, right? Valentine's Day and whatnot. But that means that they're going to be born up to the election. I just keep getting the sense that a lot of souls are going to come right back in. And that maybe that's just me kind of grasping for some measure of anything to hold on to in terms of just a hope, I guess. But I do feel like that is a possibility. I got it in the read for that, and I'm getting it in this one too. And we'll go through the actual dates as we go through the astrology. But don't lose that fire, Aquarius. Don't lose who you are. it's not worth letting go, because if you do, then it's like you are just the hive, right? And you won't even know that you'll be so deeply enmeshed in that group think, whatever group it is that you're part of, that you won't even realize that you yourself are fading away. So I feel like that this Vesta stationing direct in the fifth house for the Aquarius rising is really something to pay attention to. So the new moon, 20 to 21 degrees, as we're going to see. Let's go forward so you can see that exactly here on this chart, if in fact you are looking at the chart. And I try not to get too much into, notating on the chart and pointing things out and being too dry, because I mean, that even just bores me. So, but I do like to sometimes show things on the chart for people who are very visual and are learning. So, like I said, everything is in the first four houses. This is really about the individual Aquarius person and knowing who we are, right? And knowing where we came from, having a grasp on our mental and our cognition and our mental functioning, and certainly how we are interacting with the environment right around us, which is a little difficult with Chiron in the third house like that. And also the fourth house, right? Where we belong, home and family, our emotional commitments to each other, and our sense of belonging, and our sense of belonging, and our sense of emotional responsibility, loyalty. It's about home and family in the fourth house. So, all right. So we have the new moon, 21 degrees Aquarius. This is going to be about roughly 5 p.m. Eastern today. I'm recording this, late morning here on the 9th of February, Eastern Standard Time. So you can find the Sabian symbol very easily, right? You just type it into a web search, 21 degrees Aquarius. You always round up. Disappointed and disillusioned woman courageously faces a seemingly empty life. The capacity to meet emotionally upsetting experiences in human relationships with strength of character and personal integrity. So we all have within ourselves the power to learn through emotional crises. So perhaps it's already happened. I would say probably since Monday. Monday was a big day. And Mercury and Pluto were in conjunction on Monday. That's really where my whole life and my immediate family's whole life changed forever. And I think since then, which has basically been, for the most part, the last bit of the last lunar cycle, where we had our Leo full moon, was finishing out. And now we get to this point here where we're being given an opportunity or a potential with this new moon to develop the integrity and the character in order to face these really difficult situations. Now, with all new moons, they are beginnings, but they're unconscious. They are seeds just becoming viable, right? They haven't even really been planted yet. And we don't know how this is going to grow, just like we don't have any control necessarily of how that seed is going to germinate and grow. We set the intention, we do plant the seed, and then we trust nature to guide the process. And if we ourselves, our personalities, are the seed, then it's the same thing applied to just us as we are growing and developing. And so, I think there is an understanding that there is disappointment or disillusionment or some other circumstance that is a challenge to us right now. And so it starts there, right? And we don't, like I said, we don't know how it's going to grow. And it's really when we get to the first quarter moon on the 16th that we experience our first real crisis in action of like, well, what am I going to do? Because the obstacles to that growth and all of the ways that we react to outside influence, which happens a lot in the second house, really, and the third, that's going to be where we just start to discover where the pitfalls and our blind spots and what we need to do to eliminate obstacles before they even get to us. But this whole week is going to be something worth just kind of sitting back and paying attention to how we just naturally react to things. It's going to be on the 16th when the moon not only is in Taurus, but will be conjunct Algol and the Pleiades. It's going to square the sun. And that's going to be, as it always is, a crisis point, a crisis in action, right? An actional crisis. What do I do? So just be patient with yourself too, Aquarius, as things are unfolding in the next week. So right from this new moon on today, which is the 9th, we're going to come into the weekend, and right away, Mercury in Aquarius is going to square Jupiter. So we're already starting to get this, the square dynamic of Aquarius and Taurus is already going to come up almost right away, because that's ultimately where the first quarter moon square is going to be, in Aquarius and Taurus. Now we're talking about fixed energy. Aquarius and Taurus are fixed air and fixed earth. So there's a lot of staunch positioning that come into cross purposes with each other with these squares, so they can be pretty intense. And it's not mutable like it would be with Pisces and Gemini, for instance, where you come into that tense 90-degree angle and you're very easily able to adapt or to be malleable. That's not the case with fixed energy, right? That's very especially Taurus, right? It's dug in. It is a brick wall sometimes. And Aquarius is, you're not, it's a force field, right? It's a energetic force field that is made up of human consciousness. So it's very difficult to break that as well. And these two things are coming into square right away. So Mercury square Jupiter. Now remember, you're talking about the mind and the higher mind, the planets representing those two things of knowledge and understanding. So Mercury in Aquarius, knowledge and a practical, pragmatic aspect of the self for Aquarius, right, is one aspect, and then Jupiter, which is understanding and wisdom and the bigger picture, is sitting in a different, much more grounded and much more value-oriented position, right, which is Taurus. So when these two are in a square to each other, it can have a positive effect, which is it can make you optimistic with a very positive and broad outlook, and it widens the view of your position so that you can make plans or that you can see things from a different perspective, right? That's a valuable thing. So squares don't always have to be something dreaded. They just are a conflict in a way that forces an issue that you have to either, adapt to, evolve from, learn from, just lean into it. The other side of a Mercury square Jupiter is that it can also, if you can't narrow down things of what you're actually going to do, and with Mercury in Aquarius, it's not about details. It's about just being plugged into the higher consciousness, which can be very difficult to come back to Earth, which is what Taurus is. So in some ways, it's going to force that issue too, in my opinion. But if you're having a hard time focusing or concentrating, there could be mistakes. So I think that if you're in that place, if you're having a hard time narrowing down, if you are kind of getting caught up in the broad and positive outlook, maybe being unrealistic about it, because there is I don't want to say a desire, but there is at least a mental projection of our ability to, to act out the vision that we have, right? And the vision has a lot to do with where Jupiter is, right? You have a vision based on this broad outlook and understanding, which is how you can, in this case, how to create happiness in dark hours, inner happiness in dark hours. Mercury's like, okay, yeah, let's do that. Let's act that out. But there may be, you might be, how do I do that? What are the details? What are the steps? And if you're having a hard time focusing, that might be really difficult to, it might be very difficult to figure out. And so I would say that it's okay to have a broad and positive outlook, to see that there is a way to take this vision and act it out, even if that means like just, communicating it out in some way, or just finding ways within yourself, I guess, to be able to communicate that to people, to put it out there, to to make some plans, right? To even just reiterate to ourselves that it's possible that we can actually feel happiness again. And there are ways to create that happiness even in the darkest of times, right? It's definitely possible. So there's right away from the new moon something that is just like, hey, this can, draw your attention towards this particular conflict or this particular challenge, right? Because that's what squares are. And right then and there may be something that is very promising. You just don't want to overpromise, don't overestimate, and certainly don't push yourself to be able to act out what you have a vision of prematurely, because you can't force things to happen. They grow on their own natural time, and all you can do is be in resonance with it in order to facilitate that process. Now Mars is going to enter Aquarius, not so. So this is the 10th, where Mercury and Jupiter square, and then that's tomorrow. That's Saturday. So we go through the weekend, and Chiron and the North Node are getting very close, and that's something that I'm going to speak more directly about in a different video, probably, that's also going to go to the subscribers as well. So again, something else, if you're interested in that, it might be worth taking a look at what subscription looks like. Mars is going to be coming into Aquarius as well by early next week. And along with that, Venus, the last holdout here in the 12th house for the Aquarius rising people, is going to sextile Neptune. And I would say that, I think especially Mars coming into Aquarius, and certainly the first house, if you're an Aquarius rising, Mars is naturally the leader of this house. And so there will be, depending on where your house cusp is, if you're an Aquarius rising, Mars coming into your first house, I mean, there's going to be a lot of outward output projection of self out into the world very forcefully, right? In a way that is very penetrating, in a way that's very spontaneous, kind of like what the new moon represents. And since it is in Aquarius, this is going to be a huge boost to that. And then you have Venus in this really nice sextile to Neptune in Pisces. And I do feel like in the 12th house, Venus does kind of cast a little bit of a mature grandmother energy, an elder type of energy in the house of endings, right? Something that only experience and maturity can truly lead us to understand some things. So the sextile to Neptune, right, which is a 60-degree angle, it's something that we have to participate in. It represents an excess that has to be released. I think that in this moment, that friends and groups of people are going to become way more important, and really enjoying that experience and being able to express spiritual love through various things, through spiritual group activities, or if you meet with church or whatever, and very heightened intuition. And I would say with Venus in the 12th house of the Aquarius rising person, and Neptune often being traditionally the leader of that house in Pisces, I just feel like that there's a lot of heightened intuition. And then with Mars in your sign, in our sign, and certainly if Mars is in the first house, there's going to be a lot of spontaneous kind of projection of self out there, and having this heightened intuition and gaining valuable insights through dreams and visions, especially when some of it has to do with, realms unseen, right? This is the 12th house where Venus is. And so there is at least some measure of tangibility and value and worth in the 12th house, and like maybe even some boundaries when we're talking about Venus and an earth sign. I just think it can make, it's going to be this particular transit, Venus sextile Neptune, there is perseverance, and there is a sense of like, there is, blessings here. There really are. And it could be, and especially when we're talking about the second house, it could certainly be resources. It could be something something like that. But I also feel like it has a lot to do with the spiritual work that people are doing with Venus in the 12th house, the situations that we have to face on our own, right? That's a lot of the 12th house as well, is that there's nobody there with you except you and the Almighty, whatever that means to you. But it can also, we also leave, we come into this world, between us and God, and we leave, and I do feel like there's something there that Venus, having to do with what's valuable and meaningful, and beautiful to us, in that realm, I think I feel like that there is a maturity there, and there is a sense of, wisdom in Capricorn that I think is going to be very, very helpful. But yeah, and it really arouses like your caring side, Venus sextile Neptune. And so, and this is where I'm starting to get all the vibe around, like, people's kind of passionate romantic encounters, increased sensitivity in sexual relations, a sun sextile Neptune. Good time for dating, as your increased magnetic allure will attract a tender and caring person, right? A soulmate or a spiritual partner. Inspired creativity also makes this a good time for things like dancing and music. So remember that there is still life to live, even if we are facing disappointing situations or really struggling emotionally, and we can still express ourselves. And that there is, we do have to push up. It's like going up the mountain to the mountain shrine, right? We have to exercise some perseverance here if we're to find, get up to the top, basically. So what you also can see, because Mars has come into Aquarius, you're also going to see on Valentine's Day. Now, I'm not like a big fan of Valentine's Day, but I can see how, this is basically when I know when I was born, so I'm pretty sure that this is when I was conceived, right? And that's why I say it's interesting that I just keep getting this sense there's going to be a lot of kids conceived, and then they're going to start being born, like, leading up to the election or after, right? It's going to be really interesting. So Mars conjunct Pluto. Talk about bringing ambition and sex drive and lust for power, like, right to the surface and increasing it. So Aquarius, it really depends on, like, where you sit in terms of your connection to what higher consciousness you are connected to, because I think that really matters. And of course, Aquarius, has, and the 11th house has to do with the internet, social media, and I would go so far as to say things like the wireless body area network, right? You're talking about, the body and the biofield, right, being connected to some sort of cloud, through some sort of digital means, right? So the Aquarius aspect can be explained in a lot of different ways. You really have to know who you are in relation to what larger context you are identified with, because once we get to Mars conjunct Pluto, right, there's an incredible increase in this ambition. There's a tendency towards selfishness that can lead to ruthless behavior and even violence if something stands in your way. Mars conjunct Pluto. So people that have this, especially in your first house, be careful about other people that may have this too, that aren't stable. You cannot ignore this powerful energy. Trying to bury it will only result in outbursts of temper or subversive action. It may manifest in people or events around you if you don't chase your desires and express this willful energy. So this again goes back to not necessarily being, having a healthy personal, channel of creative expression. That Leo energy for the Aquarius person is not balancing, right? And so if you try to stifle this in any way, it will manifest somewhere. It'll find its way out no matter what. And so this could be dangerous because you have less control over those situations as you do yourself. This is a really good time to work independently on something that you're passionate about. So there it comes back to the passion again. You'll have the endurance and the strength to succeed at complex tasks. Now, Mars and Pluto both rule Scorpio, okay? And for the Aquarius rising person, this is your 10th house of public profile, right? Your public role. And so and of course Scorpio has to do with sexual energy, right? The raw energy that's generated when people come together into some sort of relationship, whether it's professional, whether it's personal, whether it's social, right? That's the Scorpio, is the raw power dynamics in those relationships. These two planets rule that sign together, and so having them come together is just like the deep soul-based power of Pluto and the individual ego aspect of Mars come together and just turbocharge all of this. So you can work independently is something you're passionate about. This is great, and maybe this has to do with self-development, Aquarius. You'll have the endurance and strength to succeed at complex tasks, whatever they are. A burst of creativity can be used to make significant transformations in your life. You may seem domineering or aggressive in close relationships, so remember that your loved one is probably not as fired up as you are, unless they also have this in Aquarius. You can raise the energy to a higher level, transform your raw primal energy to find greater enjoyment and satisfaction. If you must compete or are threatened, then you draw on your warrior energy to fight and win, and act on instinct and use any adrenaline rush for peak action. Avoid just being nasty and teasing and bullying. You can make a big impression and succeed if you use this energy wisely. So that comes from astrologyking.com about the Mars conjunct Pluto. So by the time we get to Valentine's Day, this is incredible energy for what that day represents. And of course, you could go into who St. Valentine is and unpack that, but that's for someone else to do. And so if you find any good videos around it, be sure to let us know here. Now, soon after this is the first quarter moon. So we're in the crescent moon phase at this point up until the 16th. And crescent moon phase is basically when you start to become aware of the boundaries and obstacles that may get in your way as the seed is attempting to germinate and grow, right? And so what kind of boundaries would a seed encounter? Well, it's got to release the shell of itself in order for the germ to come out, and then the germ has to fight its way up through the soil, and then it has to make sure that it has access to sunlight in order to start photosynthesis. These are all the things, especially the first phase, which is you got to get out, you got to push your way out of the seed and start making your way up to the surface. And again, it's very instinctual. You're not, the seed is not consciously making these decisions. It's just following instinct. And that's what we're still doing up to the first quarter moon. Now let's go back a couple hours so you can see exactly where this quarter moon is happening, which is in Taurus. It's conjunct Algol. It's conjunct the Pleiades. And it's in the fourth house, which is the normal home for the moon being the ruler of Cancer, and Cancer is usually the fourth house. Now the moon is exalted in Taurus. It's very powerful here. And so for the Aquarius rising people, this quarter moon will be powerful in the fourth house, exalted in Taurus, and then conjunct the Pleiades and Algol in this square to the sun, which is actually conjunct the natal moon of the U.S. natal chart, which is 28 Aquarius. So what am I going to do? What are we going to do this first quarter moon? Also, again, Venus just came into Aquarius. So everything now is out of the 12th house and in the first four houses for the Aquarius person. It's all about the individual identity. So squaring the sun, and this is where the moon is, a woman past her change of life experiences a new love. I mean, the possibility of re-beginning in the fourth house, right? And the idea here is that just because the woman has this biological process that has reached its conclusion, that doesn't mean that the person is unable to find new love and be ignited by new passions and to have a different type of life, right? I mean, that's and having its connection to Algol in particular, talking about the head of the Gorgon and releasing oneself from that which has grown to be, a toxic expression of something. And once it's released, it actually can also release all of that toxicity out of the situation. There's an adaptation that comes along at the end of Taurus. And the thing is that I feel like that with the sun in Aquarius, especially if it's your first house, but regardless if it's the sun, if you're an Aquarius sun or Aquarius moon, the square here of what do I do? What is the actional crisis? Because the feelings, it's so sensitive and deep with the moon in the fourth house like this. The sun, these late degrees of Aquarius is being prepared for the future. Having the capacity to hold the energy. It's like this degree is represented by a wood pile that's filled, right? A tree that has been felled and sawed in preparation for firewood for the winter, right? There's an intelligent foresight here, something that's been the intelligence has been able to prepare for something that is going to happen and is a necessity. Here, let's read some more about it. And again, you can find this information yourself. It's Sabian symbols are very accessible online, or books that you can get, you can download. Knowledge and skill used in its natural surroundings for the satisfaction of vital basic needs, right? In meeting the hardships inherent in an existence close to nature, strength, efficiency, and intelligence are needed, but they are incorporated in a life in which every act can be part of a harmonic and beautiful ritual permeated with deep significance. I think that the struggle here, and there's so much energy popping off in Aquarius as this is happening, because it's not just a new moon in Aquarius and then you get this square. It's everything else around it. It's Mercury here, it's Mars here, it's Pluto here, it's Venus here now being in conjunction with Pluto in Aquarius. There's so much power here. There's so much generative power here in terms of the Aquarius identity, right? And there is a knowledge and turning meeting basic needs into some sort of deep ritual is something that it's not that it's a terrible thing, but there will be this very deep emotional sensitivity to letting something go, ultimately at the level of the individual root system, whether that's home and family, whether that's your own personal power, whether that is your deep core and sense of who you are and where you belong. While there is a lot of energy in Aquarius that is really coming back to the Aquarian identity and how powerful that can be, and how, like I said, there's a lot of generative power in that sign right now. There's going to be this kind of sense here of release of something, that the natural course of things, natural evolution, means that there is a cycle, right, of death and rebirth. And even though we always have the option to begin again, just like the woman who reaches her change of life, and even though she is no longer the mother or capable of being the mother, she starts to become the crone, right? And there's something powerful about that transition that is going to kind of stick with us down in an area that is not logical, that's not rational, that's not even cognitively accessible. It's going to be all in the feels, all in the subconscious and in the intuition, and something very natural, right, in terms of letting something go. So no matter how much the Aquarius person thinks that they can just like harness and mentally manage everything, and it does seem like that with all this energy in Aquarius, and there's something to be said for that. It's about knowing what it is that what it is you do want to generate, what it is you do want to create. And you can even see here, by this point, Lilith has moved back into Leo, so that's going to be a really important space to hold in terms of relationship, right? That there is something deeply powerful within all of us that wants that relationship and wants to feel that spark of passion. And for the Aquarius person, it comes in the relationships with people, like and the Aquarius person being an authentic participant in that relationship. So the Aquarius person has to be very clear with themselves of who they are and what their gifts are, and it's only then that the identification with the groups or societies or humanity as a whole, their ability to receive the gift or not, doesn't change. Doesn't change the heart of the individual person, but that means that the Aquarius person has to know who they are, right? And there can be overwhelming pressure for an Aquarius person that doesn't have a very strong Leo element locked in. And so this is going to, and part of leaving something behind is having the capacity to accept that natural progression and evolution. So I'm not, it's going to be different for everyone, but I think that come next Friday, there will be this, very deep, sensitive kind of, something deep within us that wants to be released, and the possibility of something new beginning. But there's going to be, I think, also a lot of, in the personality of the Aquarius person, attempting to really use the intellect and the connection to a higher consciousness to manage the whole situation. And that's not what it means to be a human, right? There's a lot of bypassing that goes on in many of the New Age spiritual type of communities, by just avoiding the process of being human and doing the healing work that's necessary for all of us, and just going right to, I'm just going to plug right in to this higher consciousness, and it's all love and light, and it is. But without the experience of being human and the natural progression of all of it, then you're really just, like I said, you're just part of the hive mind. And that can be really dangerous. It can be very dangerous. And it also, but if you know who you are, being connected to humanity, that is something entirely different. And so there's a lot of potential for that too. So part of, besides Venus coming into Aquarius on this day of the square, is that Mercury is going to square Uranus. And so it's going to double up on this first house, fourth house, Aquarius Taurus square, because Mercury is going to square Uranus. Now, Mercury, of course, is our mind, and Uranus is what? The higher mind. It rules Aquarius. So that square is whatever, it's going to bring in the excitement and change into your life that may bring up these issues of what do I do? So you may receive, as if it's not upsetting enough, you may receive upsetting news or an experience that something unexpected that forces you to change plans, right? And again, I think we'll have to decide, well, what do I do? So, be easy on yourself here if something very drastic in the home and family changes, or the regular tempo of life increases. You may have an unsettling feeling, right? Take extra time with this type of transit, right? An increased need for excitement or amusement makes you easily distracted. There are other things that could easily distract you and be less responsible, less dependable. Mishaps are likely in communication. There's vital information that might be missed. There could be misunderstandings leading to arguments, so leading to the wrong things being said. But this is also an increased ability to view things from a different perspective, which can lead to original ideas and breakthroughs, right? And you can alleviate a lot of the anxiety and stress by postponing important meetings or appointments, right? I really feel like that up to this point, there may have been a sense of, okay, I know kind of what to expect or what's going to happen or anything like that. And then Mercury and Uranus are square, the sun and the moon are square, the same houses, the same signs, and something unexpected pops up, and we are forced then, like, okay, well, what do I do? And it will be around these same themes of these angular houses, which is the first house of subjective personality, and the fourth house is your character, where you belong. And your character is not your personality. Your character is your personality in relation to your family, your home, your clan, your tribe, your nation, right? The place where your root system, right? your root system allows you to connect to your past, which is the living soil, the medium of your growth, your own history, which is Taurus, the second house. So whatever it is, it's not going to be expected, and it's going to force the issue of like, well, what do I do? And again, having that larger perspective or a shift in perspective might be exactly what we need in order to even let something go, or even consider that we can emotionally let something go. So that's on the 16th, and then the Venus comes into Aquarius. So the next day, which is the 17th, Saturday the 17th, which is next week, Venus comes into conjunction with Pluto as well. And so this, again, increases your need for love and affection. You want to experience companionship at a deeper, more intense level, wielding greater power to attract friends and lovers. Again, Aquarius, this is in your sign. And so this is really coming back to you and us being much more attractive, much more magnetic to people, pulling people in subconsciously, and if you misuse this energy and pulling power and manipulating other people, there is going to and using subversive tactics, it will backfire eventually. Other behaviors to be aware of are possessiveness and jealousy when Venus and Pluto get together, because Venus is normally very possessive because she pulls in, she's attractive, she attracts in, or is magnetic in her quality, and so she pulls and wants to have. Infatuation is fine. You may even fall in love right now, but stalking and spying are also on the table. So Aquarius, just be aware of like where things can take you in terms of your subjective self, in terms of some of these more negative traits. There may also be a tendency to fall for harmful, dangerous people, right? This is very possible as well, like criminals and heavy drug users. So in good relationships, this transit can lead to intense sexual experiences, right? And so here is yet another influence in this way, Aquarius, and especially if you have your Aquarius sun or moon in some other house too, and instant attraction, profound and karmic relationships, all that kind of stuff. So very, very intense. But there will be something that is that square over to Taurus with Uranus and then the first quarter moon, that's going to be really drawing the attention back to the feels and the sensitivity and the depth, right? That fourth house energy. The sun moves into Pisces on the 18th, and on the 19th is where Chiron and the North Node come into conjunction. I just can't address how I think this is going to be a really big deal as the sun comes into Pisces on the 19th. This is in the third house for the Aquarius rising, so this is going to affect a lot of what's immediately around the Aquarius person, and the mental energy, the thoughts, the information, knowledge, what we know, how we communicate that. That's all third house stuff. So that's something that's going to come out in a separate video. I just don't have the bandwidth right now to really address that issue. Now, on the 22nd is when Venus and Mars also come into conjunction, and they will be pretty much at the same place for the most part, within a couple, like 2 degrees of where the full moon was, where the sun was at the last full moon, which was an Aquarius Leo axis. So Venus conjunct Mars, 7 degrees Aquarius. A child is seen being born out of an egg. We're talking about the cosmic egg here, getting basically fertilized. Increase your desire for intimate relationships, driven by an intense need for sexual satisfaction. You become very direct in your search, right? This is, again, Aquarius. The primal urge to reproduce is not so raw and aggressive as to make others feel uncomfortable. That's very interesting. Your more tender and sensual side dominates, right? That's interesting. When Venus and Mars come together, it seems that in that case, Venus is the more dominating energy, because it's more tender and more sensual. So it actually increases your chances of romance when Venus is kind of running the show in this conjunction. And findings, and so it's not all about that, right? You also find satisfaction in just any type of creative activity. So again, Aquarius, being very aware of what higher consciousness you are identified with and tapped into, is going to have a lot to do with what types of creative activities are going to be satisfying to you? What types of energies are going to feel like coming through you as a personality? This is an excellent time to start any kind of artistic work, or something combining the physical and emotional. So this might also be like one of those moments where the disappointing and disillusioned aspects that started with this new moon, there might be potential now to create something brand new out of the scenario, bringing together the physical aspects of the art, for instance, and the emotions that have been struggled with and processed so far. So there's actually quite a bit of opportunity to bring forward that creative energy. Even routine work could be made more enjoyable now. Very much so. Now, from here, Mercury comes into Pisces, and then we get our full moon on the 24th. And like I said earlier, the moon will be in Virgo. It will be conjunct Alpha Draconis. It's got a huge Draco signature to it because Alpha Draconis is one of the stars in the Draco constellation. It also was the pole star several thousand years ago. So it was very important to the people who were current at the time that it was the pole star. So but the Draco energy with the year of the wood dragon being all wrapped up into this 2 weeks is something that was not lost on me. So we talked about it quite a bit on that wood dragon astrology, Chinese astrology presentation. So when we get to the full moon, it'll be Saturday the 24th. Like I said, Venus and Mars will be coming off their conjunction. Basically too, that within a number of degrees, Saturn and the sun will be pretty much conjunct at this full moon. It's still pretty wide, but it's within 5 degrees. So I think that Saturn and the sun coming together at this next full moon is going to give an element, especially for Aquarius, right? It's hard to have Saturn in the second house. It can feel like an albatross, right? It can just be so physically dense and heavy, but it also really kind of, especially around resources as well, but it also can make people like really just like, buckle down and get really serious about resources as well. So that I think is, I think that's a positive thing. And then these two, soon after this, will be in a conjunction with each other. And that's something we'll talk about on the next the next weekly astrology report, which is exclusive to people who are subscribed to Catalyst Energies through Subscribestar. So yet again, if you're interested, you can go and check that out through the link in the description box below. So my friends, thank you truly for being here. I do really appreciate all of you very much. To those of you who have reached out and offered condolences and just support and love, I really appreciate you all so very much. Aquarius, if you need support, don't be afraid to reach out. There are people in your life that care about you. I assure you somewhere that you're not alone. And it's strangely enough, it's the Aquarius people that ultimately can feel the most alone when they don't know their own heart, right? Because that relationship is most authentic when the Aquarius person is actually completely engaged and not afraid to be themselves in that relationship and is aware of their own gift in that moment. So Aquarius, thank you for being here. I really appreciate you as well. So let me know if you need anything. Of course, my email is in the description box below as well. And I think that's all I have for you. I'm scanning my grief-ridden brain right now to see if there's anything else that would be worth sharing in this moment, and I really don't think there is. So everything you need is in the description box. If you have any questions, you know how to get a hold of me. The main social media for Catalyst Energies is on Telegram, so I encourage you to subscribe or join the channel over there. It's been a little slow this week just because, I haven't really been working, but that is where most of the social media action. In fact, I will say, for those of you who are not new, Facebook Meta has had threatened to basically shut down my Facebook Catalyst Energies profile permanently because I was breaking their rules that you can't actually, I didn't know this, you can't promote your own digital content or digital services that are for pay. You can't promote that on your business page on Facebook. That's against their rules. So they threatened to turn me off completely. So I stopped posting. So if those of you who are on Facebook and you're just like, there's nothing happening, maybe you want to move over to Telegram if you're interested in the social media aspect, because I'm not going to post to Facebook anymore. I will still have a landing page, but I'm not going to engage with them anymore if that's how it's going to be. So, all right, my friends, thank you for being here. I truly appreciate all of you so very much, and I will see you on the next video. Thank you for subscribing. Thank you for commenting, sharing, even hitting that like button. It means a lot to the growth of this channel and Catalyst Energies. So I'll see you next time. Take care, everyone.